Ako ay Pilipino, ang dugo'y maharlika. Likas sa aking puso at hikain kay kanda sa...
Translation, Wang Chang. He made the report the moment he went back to Bandung, July 31, 1937, he made this report. One stone tablet can be found beside the old tree on the southern side of Rocky Island facing to the island, which is 50 feet from shore. The tablet's base is buried at a depth of 1 foot. Commemorating the inspection of 1911 was carved on the tablet. Remember, July. We went there the month before, June. Another one, northwest of the well near Central Road on Mindanao, Cruz Bagay. Around 5 feet near the well, another tablet can be found with inscription commemorating the inspection of 1921, and so on and so on. I will not go further. In Spratlys Island, this is occupied by the Vietnamese. There's a marker there, erected in December 1946. Now, this marker was supposed to have been put there, erected there, in 1946 by a Chinese Navy man from Guangdong. He was sent there after the war, 1946, after the war, to retake the Spratlys from the Japanese. And he did reach into Ava, but he never reached the Spratlys Island or Westward Island. There was a book written by this guy, straight to the Spratlys, and he was going to say this story that in 1946, M.I.S.M.O, the commander of the naval ship that went to the marker in Westward and in Spratlys. So he went to the editors of the book and he complained. So there is this editor's note in the book itself. According to M.I.S.M.O, who was assigned by the Guangdong government to retake the Spratlys Islands from the Japanese invaders, Chinese Navy ships did not reach Westward Island and Spratlys Island. Thus, stone tablets on these two islands might have been erected by the Taiwanese Navy in 1956. It's their own book. We are not presenting here the narrative of the Philippines. This is their own narrative, their own historical records, official records, saying that they planted false sovereignty markers. I will not go to the maps anymore, except to show one map. The 1734 map. This is called the mother of all Philippine maps. 1734, Murillo Velarde, he was a Jesuit priest. He made this map with the aid of two Filipinos, Suarez and Nicolas de Cruz Bagay. They were the artists who engraved and drew. Now, when this came out in Europe, they were amazed. It was so detailed. You can see the names of these towns at the time here. Very detailed. And this was done through engraving. And it was like Google Map at the time. It was really amazing because it was so detailed. And it shows Scarborough Shoal and Panacot. Look at the reef, the way it was drawn by Francisco Suarez. And it also shows another reef, three reefs. Los Bajos de Paragua. What is the meaning of Los Bajos de Paragua? Paragua was the old Spanish name of Palawan. Bajos in Spanish means shallow waters. The shallow waters of Palawan. And these are reefs. The Spratlys are extensive reefs. So these are the Spratlys. It's already in the map of the Philippines in 1734. There is no older map either by Vietnam or China, showing the Spratlys as part of their territory. We have a very old map, and there's no older map that they can show. They don't have a map showing Scarborough earlier than 1734. Even the, as I will show later, the 9-dash line map of China does not mention Scarborough at all. In September 2014, something earth-shaking happened. There was an announcement that moved the tectonic plates of the South China Sea. That announcement was made by President Ma of Taiwan. Taiwan belongs to the Kuomintang party, and it was the Kuomintang government that invented the 9-dash lines in 1947. the Communist Chinese merely adopted it later on. Now, President Ma was invited to deliver the opening speech of an exhibit of the ancient maps of China referring to the 9-dash lines and the official documents of China. And in that exhibit, he said, the 9-dash lines was a claim only to islands and the adjacent territorial sea. At that time, 3 nautical miles now were not. But as Ma stated, there were no so-called claims to sea regions. We did not claim the entire South China Sea. We only claimed the islands that appeared in the 9-dash line map. We never claimed anything beyond the territorial sea. Wonderful. That aligns Taiwan now to UNCLOS perfectly in alignment with the law of the sea. So we have come to interpretations of the 9-dash lines. The PRC or PROC interpretation that China owns the entire sea enclosed by the 9-dash lines or the islands, rocks, and waters. And we have now the interpretation of Taiwan, the originator of the map, saying that we did not claim the entire sea. We claim only the islands within those lines and the territorial sea. So this is a great divergence. And I hope that the people in mainland China follow this eventually, because that is really the real connection. Everybody agrees. It was only later that the Chinese expanded it. Because at that time, everybody knew you cannot own the sea. Even in 1947, you can only claim territorial sea, 3 nautical miles. Beyond that, constituted the high seas already, belonging to all mankind. So, President Ma, the title itself says, Location Map of South Sea Islands. South Sea Islands. So it's about islands. It's not about the sea. The Chinese don't call the South China Sea a South China Sea. They call it the South Sea, T.I.N.D.I.G. It was the European navigators that gave the name South China Sea, the sea south of China. So you cannot find here Scarborough Shoal. You see, this is the Jongsa Island. This Macasquill Bank is called Jongsa Island. But Macasquill Bank is not an island. It is fully submerged, 9 meters below the surface of the water, all year round. So whoever drew this map has never seen Jongsa Island because it did not exist in 1947. It still does not exist today. There is no island there. It's totally submerged. Now, in the map, there's Jongsa Island and there are features, other geologic features, Pygmy Shoal, there's the back, there's Machon. You know, these are all, this is a transliteration of Pygmy Shoal. The British were the ones who called it Pygmy Shoal. The Chinese just transliterated it based on the UK nautical charts. They just copied the nautical charts. Now there is no Wangian Island or Green Jew here. Never mentioned here. Wangian Island is the Chinese name for Scarborough Shoal. The second name is Ninjao. It's not there. You cannot find it in the map. So China never claimed Scarborough in their 9-dash line. They put all the names here except Scarborough. There's no Chinese equivalent of Scarborough here. Because they did not know, probably, that there was such a show. Now, there is this guy, Robert Kaplan. He says that we, small countries around the South China Sea, should just accept our fate. We are a small country, and China is a huge country, and that's it. Just like America. America adopted the Monroe Doctrine, and the Latin American countries just succeeded. He said the 9-dash line is just like the Monroe Doctrine, or annexing territory. You can go to war if you win, territory is yours. When we adopted the Charter of the UN, that was outlawed. You cannot acquire territory by force. It's outlawed, prohibited, banned by international law. So the situation now is totally different from the situation in 1820. The world has revolved 1 billion times since then. So nobody in his right mind can say that the 9-dash line is like the Monroe Doctrine. Totally different. Besides, eventually the US used the Monroe Doctrine to intervene in the domestic affairs of Latin American countries. That's why the Latin Americans hated them. Anybody who says we should accept that kind of doctrine will find that everybody, all countries will disagree with that. We will not allow China to dictate on our domestic affairs. So this is the proposal of Kaplan that we should just accept our fate based on the model doctrine. Now let's go to the four objections of China in arbitration. China is saying that the arbitration is nothing but boundary, maritime delimitation between two states. A dispute of maritime delimitation between two states. China is saying, oh, you brought a case of overlapping maritime zones. And under Article 298 of UNCLOS, we have made the reservation that we will not be bound by overlapping maritime zones, and that is allowed under UNCLOS. Let's go to 298. It says here, 298 allows exclusion from compulsory arbitration of disputes concerning interpretation or application of Articles 15, 74, 83 relating to sea boundary delimitations. That's the exact wording of 298. That's what China is invoking. Let's go to Article 15. Article 15 says delimitation of territorial sea between states with opposing or adjacent coasts. In other words, if there are overlapping territorial sea, you will ask for delimitation to draw your boundary. There is no overlapping territorial sea between the Philippines and China. There's none. Article 74. Delimitation of exclusive economic zone within states with opposite or adjacent coasts. We do not have overlapping easily with China. Very far. I will show that later. Article 83. Delimitation of continental shelf between states. There is none within the Philippines and China. So you can invoke 298 if that is an interpretation or application of Article 1574 relating to sea boundary delimitation. It's not applicable. Why? Here is the territorial sea of China. Here is our territorial sea. So far, there's no overlap. EEZ. This is the EEZ of China. This is our EEZ. So far, no overlap. Continental shelf. This is the continental shelf of China. These are our continental shelf. We may have overlapping continental shelf in Vietnam, but not with China. The Chinese extend continental shelf will end here. And we cannot claim an EEZ in the zone because there is a big trench, the Manila Trench. The natural prolongation is cut by the Manila Trench. That's why we are not claiming. So there is no overlap. Besides, even if there is an overlap, all we need is a portion of the waters where there is no overlap. And there are huge areas where there is no overlap. That's why we are saying the reservation of China doesn't apply because the 9 gas lines are not territorial waters, are not easy waters, and not continental waters because they are not based on land. To draw your territorial sea, you must measure from land. Your easy measure from land. The 9 gas lines cannot be. In fact, China claims the 9 gas lines. Next slide. Okay, there's still a provision in UNCLOS which says no reservation or exception will be made to this convention unless expressly permitted by other articles. In other words, for you to claim that you are not subject to compulsory arbitration, there must be a specific provision in UNCLOS saying that. And that is allowed only for overlapping territorial sea, Article 15. Overlapping EEZ, Article 74. Overlapping continental shelf, Article 8. There is no provision saying that historic waters can be exempted. None at all. Now, why is it important to apply UNCLOS to the South China Sea dispute? Because if we don't apply UNCLOS, then UNCLOS cannot be made to apply to any other dispute, maritime dispute, in any of the waters, other seas and oceans of the world. It will be the end of UNCLOS. Well, this issue about whether a state can claim an entire sea has long been settled. 1600, let's go back to the 1600. There was this guy, Hugo Grotius. He wrote a book, MARITIME. And in the book he argued that the oceans and seas belong to all mankind. This was the position of the Netherlands. Years later, this guy, John Selden, came out with his book, Mare Nostrum. And he argued that the oceans and the seas are subject to ownership appropriation by sovereign states. England took the position that it can own the seas. Spain took the same position. Portugal took the same position. They were naval powers. Netherlands was a merchant shipping company. It took the position that the oceans and seas belong to all mankind. So there was this great debate, an ideological battle, to win the hearts and minds of legal scholars, policymakers, and the public between Grotius and Selden. Grotius won after over a century of debate. Of course, the debate at the time was slow motion. When Hugo Grotius came out with his book in 1609, John Selden responded several years later. It took time to write print. But that's why it took a long time. Over a century, there was a clash of ideas. Grotius won. And his idea became the foundation of the law of the sea. And because he has written other legal essays like the law of war, Grotius now is called the father of international law. So Grotius won that debate. So it settled everything. From then on, you can only claim a territorial sea of 3 nautical miles. Everything beyond that belongs to mankind. That is the story. Now, in 1982, we almost that 3 nautical mile extended to 12. Now, today, China is saying we can own the entire South China Sea. That is the argument of John Selden. That's been long settled. So, I've given this presentation to many think tanks in Europe, ASEAN, other countries. And I always ask them, because we want to get their support, will the world community allow a single state, China, to rewrite the law of the sea so it can exercise indisputable sovereignty to almost an entire sea, subject the high seas to sovereign jurisdiction, and seize large areas of other coastal states' EEZs, which are their legal maritime entitlement under control? This is what is really before the tribunal now. And that's why I say it's either 9 times we kill the law of the sea, or the law of the sea will kill 9 times. That's all.
I'm Santiago of Maritime Forum. I would like to introduce our panel of reactors. Actually, meron pang reserve na resource person from the Navy. Captain Nick Paldon has served the Marines for 22 years, and he has engaged himself into security consultancy. But his preoccupation now is some activities against bullying of China, and this is the Kalayaan NGO. According to him, his target is really to engage our civilian people, in the issue, because he said our people has not been involved in this issue. The other member of the panel is ASEC Attorney Eduardo Jose de Vega. He's a lawyer and current diplomat and current Assistant Secretary for Legal Affairs of the Department of Foreign Affairs. He obtained his grade school and high school in LaSalle Green Hills and AB Political Science and Bachelor of Laws from the University of the Philippines. He obtained his postgraduate degree in International Relations from the Madrid Diplomatic Academy in Madrid, Spain, and has a master's degree in National Security Administration from the National Defense College. He joined the Department of Foreign Affairs after passing the Foreign Service Officer exam, of course, and the bar exam in 1991. His foreign postings has been in embassies in foreign post. And now in the DFA Home Office, his duties included service with the local office in charge of Middle East and African affairs, ASEAN affairs, assistance to national American affairs, special concerns, and now is legal affairs. Now we go, since our intermission has not been successful, I would like to say a poem. This poem is about, this poem is authored by Admiral Tomas Ploma, the founder of Freedom Land. Here is the poem. I've swum more than half the distance, braved the storm and withstood the gale, always with hope and always with chance, inspired by ambition and cemented by will. Parents, brothers and sisters dear, this is the brave and persistent swimmer in the wide Pacific Ocean of faith, tired but hopeful still, hopeful as a dreamer, to reach the land of beautiful days. That's the poem of Admiral Ploma. And let's give him a hand because he's the founder of Freedom Land. Now we go to the reaction of Captain Nicolas.
It's been a long time, sirs. I've been dreaming to listen to you. In fact, all your writing, speeches, and engagement here and abroad are the basis of all the inspirations my group carrying us out in our advocacy. Thank you. In 2012, I was one of those civilians who have a feeling of, so what shall we do then? Yeah. So I attended with few youth and fishermen to go to Scarborough and intended to stay there. That is before China eventually took control for Scarborough. The question remains until today. After we have all witnessed the presentation of the Senior Justice, Supreme Court Associate Justice here, it even emboldens the question of ano pa bang pwede natin gawin. Yeah, kasi I believe the country is in good hands as far as the legal battle is concerned. But what else we can do, ladies and gentlemen? Yun po yung aming tinatanong sa aming pag-ikot. As of today, we have visited 17 provinces. And we intend to visit the 82 provinces until November of this year, conducting information drive. Now, the question, sir, is what we can do aside from the legal battle that the government is pursuing right now. May we know from you, sir, kung ano pa pong pwedeng gawin natin kasi in 2012 we were stuck. A civilian effort that was supposed to start in 2012, stopping the incursion of China, ay pinigilan po kami.
I read in the papers before that you wanted to sail to Scarborough Shoal. That was sometime 2012. The dispute is a territorial dispute and a maritime dispute. And if it's a rock above water at high tide, that is a territorial dispute. There is no mechanism to solve that to arbitration unless China agrees to submit it to arbitration. But when it comes to maritime dispute, there is already a dispute settlement mechanism under UNCLOS to which China has signed and ratified. So how do we convert a territorial dispute into a maritime dispute? And I said, you know, if only we can send a group of brave people to Scarborough Shoal, put a dynamite around that 1.2 meter rock, blast it, it's now below water at high tide, it is now a maritime dispute. It will be part of the issue in the tribunal. That was our discussion then, because you were planning to go there. I said, I hope they will bring a dynamite to sidewise the rock. Because we all know that the Americans used the Scarborough Shoal as an impact range. And they were, I think, really dropping some bombs there. They were using live ammo for their gunnery exercises. And that's why maybe the Scarborough Shoal, before it was maybe more than 1.2 meter of water high tide. Now it's only 1.2. But unfortunately, they did not bomb it enough. Had they bombed it more, maybe it would be below water at high tide. It would be a maritime dispute and not a territorial dispute. Well, anyway, we have a long, difficult task ahead of us. The first task of our generation is to get a ruling from the tribunal, from an impartial tribunal competent to rule on the matter, and that is the UNCLOS tribunal, because China itself is a party to UNCLOS, to rule that the 9-dash lines are void. That is our biggest duty, to get that struck down. Once that is struck down, then we go to the world, convince the world to help us convince China. Because our problem really here are Chinese people. From the time they entered school, elementary to high school to college, they were already taught that the South China Sea belongs to them. And so all the generals, all the admirals, all the Politburo members, all the diplomats, all the bureaucrats of China have been taught that way. So it's second nature to them. Sa amin yan, that belongs to China. How do we change that mindset? Because unless we change that mindset, they will not change. They will insist. They happen to have the atomic bomb. They happen to have aircraft carrier. They happen to have long-range fighter bombers. So, we first have to convince ourselves. Tama tayo. So we have to tell our people first, so that we will know the issues, we understand them. Then, with that ruling, we go to the rest of the world. Every year, we will sponsor a resolution before the General Assembly that China must comply with the ruling. China must, to be part of the community of civilized nations, must comply with international law, must comply with UNCLOS. And I think the world will vote for that resolution overwhelmingly. And we will ask Taiwan to help us explain to the Chinese people. Only if we have convinced a great portion of the Chinese people that they have to follow international law, only then will their government agree, because their government probably will be afraid to be too far ahead of the position of their people. So that's the way I look at it. So this is a matter of explaining to ourselves first, and then to the world. To the world we do that. To the people we do that now. To the world once we have the ruling, and then we ask the world. Let's convince the Chinese people. Not only the Chinese government, because we have to convince the Chinese people, because they have that mindset already. We have to change that mindset. Thank you. That's how I look at it.
That's the same question the people we have been receiving in the provinces that we have visited. Go to the world and convince them to support us. It's easier said than done. How are we going to convince the whole world? If I'm not mistaken, in the past 3 years, we have heard the whole nation calling the whole world to help us. But what we have received at best is lip service until today. China, as we all know, have been giving us one answer. Even when Barack Obama said that China, you cannot just use your elbow to bully your small neighboring countries. The reply of China is, you as hypocrite, you're not even a party to Red Cross. So wala kang karapatan magsalita nito. Clearly, China has no intention to listen. As you said, sir, it has a grand plan, and they're there. Their activities right now is clearly to to accomplish their objective. And in one school, where 3 days ago at Tagalog State University, one of the professors there asked, how will, let's say, India sacrifice its economic ties, diplomatic ties with China just to help us? Because these were, in order to help us, they had to give up some economic relationship, diplomatic relationship with China. How are we going to convince the world to give their economic ties with China in order to help us? Are we doing enough effort to make the whole world admire us and sacrifice their economic ties with China, diplomatic ties with China to help us? This is the question that we need to know. Paano natin ito gawin? How can we convince the world to support us in this fight?
Ako ay Pilipino, ang dugo'y maharlika. Likas sa aking puso at hika.